Only so that I don't fall over, that's why I'm here. But thank you for having me. Yeah, so spoiler alert, I am a Paralympic gold medalist, but it was a long time ago. We were at school this morning and I was like, the t-shirt I'm wearing is actually 18 years old. How depressing is that? But it did still fit, so you know, you win some, you lose some. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing to be, I've never been to Jersey before. When I was swimming in Bath, I did swim with a girl that was from Jersey, and she always used to tell us all how amazing it was and how much better your weather was and everything. And she was right. Like, even though you don't think it's been that good, it's way better than it is in Wales. So thank you for having me. I've seen so many amazing things already, and it gives me so much, I think, excitement and confidence about where you can take disability inclusion here in Jersey. Yesterday we went to BSK, who've done a brilliant job of serving us some canapes tonight and our drinks. I hope they've kept you fed and watered, and I saw everything that was going on there. And we went to Acorn, and again a lot of amazing things happening there. And I think the pipeline that we've got here to help disabled people get into employment is really important. And now all we really need to do is join the dots and put it all together and ensure everybody's on the same page and dispel some of the myths that exist and remove some of the barriers of comfort levels so that we can all work together. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and what I do and what I've learned about disability inclusion or inclusion generally and the workplace, and then a little bit of how I learned those lessons as a swimmer. A lot of what I learned was as a swimmer, and then where we can go from here. So I hope that works for everybody, and then I'll be around for you to ask me any questions at the end, if that's okay with everybody. I can only apologise to the signer because I realise I speak really fast, and I'll try and slow it down, but I just get excited and then I can't. So yeah, so I'm Liz Johnson. So I am 36 years old. I am a former Paralympian. I retired in 2016, and I have a disability. But are any of those really that relevant when I'm looking to get a job? And possibly, they are possibly relevant, my age, my experience, my skill set, all of those things, but are they distinguishing factors when we're determining how capable I am of something? Then absolutely not. And if we look at what would be relevant, it might be that I was a Paralympian, but it wouldn't be because I've got a gold medal or I was a swimmer. It would be because I've got an outlet where I've developed soft skills that are really useful and really transferable. So that would give a prospective employee confidence that I maybe could be reliable, or I've got potential to be motivated enough and resilient enough to achieve things. But often people don't ask those questions, and actually, if I did a survey now and asked you how many people have been to the Olympics or been to the Paralympics, most of you are going to say no, I think. And if you say yes, brilliant. And then if I step it up a level and I ask you how many have got a medal, again, so most of you would probably then be like hands down or sit down or whatever, fine. And then if I ask you how many have got a gold medal, that number becomes even smaller, right? But, and that's not diminishing any of your achievements, that's making a point that a lot of the time when we meet a disabled person, we ask them exactly that. Did they go to the Paralympics, or what sport do they like, or all of these things? And actually they don't need to have those accolades. But so often, they're expected to have something before they're given an opportunity to just do a job. And most people want to go to work to pay their bills, maybe get a mortgage, though I've seen the prices of the houses here, maybe not get a mortgage, or go on holiday, whatever it is they want to do, right? But again, this unrealistic expectation, it's not fair and it's not right, because I was talking earlier and we were talking about how if you look at the population, 90% of people sit in the middle. They're just Joe Blogs with a decent job that funds their lifestyle, Yet a lot of disabled people are either expected to give so much more to do the same as everybody else. That means they might be earning money, but they can't have a lifestyle because they spend all the time in bed recovering, or they never get the opportunity in the first place to get that money. Am I making sense so far? And I think when people, through my life, I've been asked, like, why is that? And I think often it's the misconceptions about what disability is, and I'm not throwing you under the bus here, Cameron, but I was talking to the photographer earlier. He's young, isn't he? And we were talking, and we were saying how, like, quite often when I'm at work and I'm doing stuff about inclusion and specifically disability, one of the questions we always ask is, what are the first three things you think of when you think of a disabled person or disability, or you hear that word, hear those words? And no word of a lie, most of the time it's Paralympian, wheelchair, and then something else about how poor their situation is, okay? And actually, that's not true. Only 8% of disabled people are wheelchair users. It's a really small number. Yet, when we think about it, or when we're presented, a lot of the time, that's who they are. And Sean and Luke told that incredible story about how a ramp is life-changing, and it can be, but it can't stop there. But more importantly, a ramp doesn't just help a wheelchair user. A ramp helps anybody pushing a pushchair, or anybody like who maybe hurt their hip at football, like on Saturday. You know, like there's lots of, and actually if we make changes for people who need them, far more people can benefit. If we have flexible working environments, then actually if you've got a long commute, or you've got to do a school run, or you've got a medical appointment, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter. And that's what we've got to start thinking about. So it's difficult because the way that disability is presented in society is that people need charity, or people need support and help. And of course they need support and help, but so does the next person. Everybody needs support and help at some point in their life. And the thing is, being disabled, hearing the word disabled or disability, it's not a bad word. It doesn't mean that we're incapable, and it doesn't mean that we're less worthy, but it does make us vulnerable, because we are so often, as with Luke's example, I'll keep going back to that, we are so reliant on other people opening their minds and becoming empathetic to the fact that we don't do things like everybody else. And actually, difference, and the whole point of this event, embrace the difference, I can't think of a better tagline, because I spend my life telling people that difference is everywhere, and to be difference is normal. And what we need to do is, rather than focusing on it being a barrier or a problem, look at normalising differences. If you were in a situation where you could only apply for a job if you were born in January to March, and you're not born in those months, and you really want that job, there's nothing you can do about it. One, that would never be allowed, right? But two, how would you feel? Because that's how disabled people feel quite often, because they can't change what they've got that works, or what people perceive that doesn't work, and the level of function that they have, or the way that they do things. But it doesn't mean that they can't do things, and that's what we need to start joining the dots with. We need to embrace those differences and see them as a strength. Because when I think I was born with my disability, and I was saying this to Ant earlier at lunch, I am blissfully ignorant, often, to how poorly people still treat me, or how unjust a situation might be, because I don't know any different. I've got no comparison. But it meant that when I was younger, I used to let poor behaviour go. And I used to make excuses for people, and I used to be so grateful that people were allowing me to be there, or including me, which turns out it wasn't inclusion at all, I was just occupying the same space, that I didn't ever question it. I didn't really fight for more. And when people said, "What's wrong with you?" I would say, "Oh, I've got cerebral palsy, blah, 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 blah," because I was never ever embarrassed about my situation. And I couldn't hide it, because not enough of me functions to be able to hide it. Like, it's obvious, right? Like, I was saying to the kids at the school this morning, it was quite useful, because even at 3 years old, I knew my left from my right, because the left side could move and the right side was a bit dodgy. But my friends, when I went to school, I started school, my friends thought it was amazing, because they didn't have to learn the left from the right, they just used to ask me. But the point is, like, it was normalised for me to be that way, and what I hadn't realised I was so fortunate that my parents, my mum especially, gave me the opportunity to try everything. And now I realise, the older I am, that she definitely did, it wasn't by chance. Like, she put a lot of effort into ensuring that I had the opportunity to be as independent as possible, but in a safe environment. So I didn't necessarily go to the swimming pool to learn to swim that was 5 minutes down the road. I went to the one that was half an hour away, which was much more of a pain for her, but she knew the lifeguards there were more empathetic to my difference, and they wouldn't treat me any differently, but they would be aware of it, and I would have an equitable experience to my peers and be completely oblivious to the amount of effort that everyone else was putting in to make that happen, right? So I was super lucky as a child, but similarly, it meant that I never saw myself as disabled. I always knew I had a disability, but I didn't necessarily see myself as disabled because I'd never come up to that point. I'd never come up with a barrier that stopped me doing what everyone else was doing. I did things differently, and I had different equipment, and it might take me longer, and I might need someone else to help me, but I could do everything. Like, in my head, I could do everything, and to that point I could. And it was only when I was learning to play a musical instrument that I realised maybe it wasn't as simple, because we got the choice. And so they were like, go home and ask your parents what you want to play. And I was like, can I play a musical instrument? My mum was like, absolutely. And then she was like, what do you want to play? And I was like, well, everyone else is going to play the flute, so, maybe I could play the flute. And she was like, well, you could, but you're not going to be very good at it, are you? And I was like, most parents are supposed to be supportive, right? Yeah. I was like, what? She was like, well, what do you need to play the flute well? And I was like, oh, 2 functional, like 8 fingers that can all move independently without me thinking too much about it. And she was like, yeah. She said, you can play the flute if you want. She said, I'm not going to stop you. She said, but you need to be aware that the limiting factor of you, if you choose that, of how far you go, won't be your capability. It won't be your drive. It won't be your resilience. It won't be your motivation. It won't be anything. It will be out of your control. She said, or you can choose a different instrument. I ended up with a trumpet. But she said, but when I got my trumpet, you only needed 3 fingers. And she said, when you stop, it's because you've decided you don't want to do it anymore. Or if you're not good enough, or you haven't practiced hard enough. That's on you. That is no longer an excuse or a reason. So I was like, I've just realised I haven't had a drink since 5:30, so I might not be able to talk. But anyway, so I ended up with my trumpet, and someone's going to go and get me. Hopefully, magically, water will appear. It might not. I'm not sure. Watch now. 10 glasses of water will appear. I've only got one hand, people. I only need 1 glass of water. So, and me clearly. So with my trumpet and the conversation I had with my mum in the traffic lights on the way home, it made me, see? As if by magic. Thank you. Sorry, people. Yeah, give him a clap. Thank you. Sorry. Now we've got to find somewhere to put it. So, with that trumpet, with that whole musical instrument lesson, what it taught me was, my mum said to me, she was like, look, I know you didn't make that choice. I know it's not your first choice, and I know you'd like to be doing what everyone else is doing. But she said, now you're in control. And she said, you've always got a choice. And actually, it was a really empowering lesson for me, even as I think I was 7 or 8. Because it made me realise that I could try and be like everybody else, and I could try and wear the same shoes as them and not be able to walk in them, not wear my splint because no one else wore a splint and then fall over every 5 seconds, or I could find what helped me be successful. And that's the key. And actually, that is not anybody else's responsibility necessarily to find the answers for me, but it is their responsibility to provide an environment where I'm able to do that. And that's what the world and society is about. It's about empowering people to be the best versions of themselves. And the music, I gave up the musical instrument because I couldn't be bothered to carry it to school after year 9. But anyway, but it led me to swimming. And I would never have probably chosen swimming as a sport because you have to get up at 4:47 in the morning, and you always stunk of chlorine, and you never brushed your hair, and you never got to wear makeup, and you always missed like school trips and all those kind of things. But finding swimming and finding people who were similar to me but different was, again, so empowering, because it made me realise everybody needs help with something. And that's okay. Some people have a cleaner, some people have an ironing person, some people don't drive. So like we all need help with something. And actually, as soon as we realise that and we remove these barriers and we become okay with being ourselves and we become okay with not judging other people because they don't do things the way that we do them, we can actually create a really strong team. And if everybody was the same, then we'd all get stuck at the same point. We'd never make gains in the world, we'd never be the first to do something, we'd never be the company with the best product. We wouldn't, because not everybody wants to do the same thing and not everybody's skilled in the same area. And so the key is that we don't look at us and them. We don't look at, oh yeah, but that's where they learned that, so it doesn't count. Or we don't look at segregation. We look at how we can utilize people's skills and characteristics and personalities sometimes to enable us to be better together. And embracing that difference is important because, like I said, difference is normal and it's everywhere. And if we look at, like, how many people in the room are wearing glasses? You don't have to put your hand up, but like, how many people in the room are wearing glasses? It's a fair percentage, right? But no one was born with glasses on. They are a normalised difference. But similarly, if you are wearing glasses, or you have them on the top of your head or in your coat pocket or whatever, ready for any moment, nobody asks you what prescription they are, or when you bought them, or how much they cost, or when you're getting your next pair, or why you wear them. They just accept that you wear glasses to help correct your vision, or you're vain and you like glasses and they look good, right? Like, but they're the two reasons. So they were normalised difference, and actually accepting people's differences and realising that they are strengths is the first step in all of this. Because then, and only then, can we park our own fears and our own vulnerabilities about thinking we should know the answers. Like, why would you know the answer? Like, if you came in here tonight and you've never been in here before and you needed the toilet, what would you do? Ask where the toilet is. Thank you very much. So if you are met with someone who does something differently to you or has a different life experience and you don't know the answer, why are we too scared to ask? Is it because we're going to offend someone? Is it because we're for fear of saying the wrong thing or in the wrong way? But by ignoring it completely, we're excluding that individual. And ignorance, it is often a reason, but it can never be an excuse. And so, like, we all need to commit to doing something to make Jersey more inclusive. And it's not one person's responsibility to change everything here, but we can all do something. And like when I'm at work, quite often it's like we talk about the 3 E's, and it's about increasing exposure, education, and empathy around difference. Because if you can't be blamed for knowing what you've never needed to know before, but you can be blamed for not learning about it, or at least making an effort to find someone else who's got the answers, so that other people aren't being excluded because we don't know, because of our own insecurities. And actually, even addressing what do we think disability is, over 70% of disabilities are hidden. So if you're waiting for a visual stimulus before you offer help to someone, then you're going to be waiting a very long time. And actually, we live in a world where, like, those visual stimuluses, a lot of people go to a lot of lengths to hide their difference because they don't want to be treated differently, ironically, right? But the energy and effort that goes into that takes away from all that they've got to offer. So when we are embracing those differences and we're expanding our own comfort zones and our own knowledge, that's when, for my word phrase, the magic happens. And as an athlete, I chose swimming, right? Because, well, I didn't, it chose me. But when I was in it, what I loved about it was I thought it was all on me. And that wasn't in an egotistical way. It was just in that if I didn't get the result, then I only had myself to blame. I was going to shoulder all that blame, and I didn't have to rely on anybody else. But throughout my career, I lost more than I won, and I got injured. I really hurt my shoulder, and 10 days before I won my gold medal, my mum died of cancer. And I suddenly realised that actually, even though I'm the person that stands on the block, and I'm the one that has to do the 1 minute and 38 seconds of swimming, I can't do it by myself. And so it doesn't matter if you find the most resilient, motivated individual, if they're not given the opportunity to show you what they're capable of, then they're never going to be able to reach their potential. And that's not fair. And it's not right. And there's no need for it. And a lot of our experiences are influenced by what we know or what we've seen in the past. And maybe it's language, maybe it's stuff in the media, maybe it's what we knew of disability 30 years ago. But in 2022, there's a lot of technology out there, there's a lot of therapy, there's a lot of support that can empower people to be independent. And that's what we need to do. We need to get involved and do our bit, because the one thing that none of us are immune to is disability or becoming disabled. And anybody can be disabled at any time. And like I said to you as a child, I didn't see myself as disabled because I wasn't always. When I was given what I needed to be successful, I could be. Now, I might not do things the same way as everybody else, but I get to the objective, and that's really all that matters. So when we're looking at how we can help and what we can do, we just need to commit to one thing. And quite often, one useful tool, I'll give you this one for free, is think to yourself, why am I thinking this? Or why am I about to say this? Or why am I about to do this? And then ask yourself, how is it relevant? How is it relevant to the moment in time or the situation that you're in right then? Because if you can answer the relevance, then you probably are okay thinking what you're thinking and you're going to say it. And you might make a mistake, you might use the wrong terminology, or you might offer help and someone decline. But that's okay. Because, like I said, disability doesn't mean incapable. And a lot of the time, like I'll be doing stuff sometimes, and people will ask me if they want me to, like I want their help, and I'm like, don't worry, I just make it look more awkward than it is. Like, I've got this is my normal way of doing it, thank you. But I know that to other people it must be like, oh my goodness, she's going to drop that in a second. But the point is, people with disabilities don't need pity. Disabled people at the moment, charity has a big part in their lives because that's the only people that provide them with the environment to do what they need to do to be successful. But they don't want that. They have goals, they have aspirations, they have dreams. We all do. And it's about working together to create an environment where we can achieve that. So I don't know what I think I would ask you to commit to doing something. One thing that you can do to make Jersey a more inclusive island. And it might be now that you just go around and look at all the places that don't have ramps and then say, I'm not coming in your shop until you get a ramp. It might be, the retailers might be after me after that. But, or it might be that, you haven't got, it might just be telling someone they don't have a ramp. Because sometimes, if you've never needed to know it before, you might not know it. So, but whatever you decide to do, embrace it, go in wholeheartedly and share it, whether that's on social media, with a colleague, with a family member, or even with the government of Jersey. And then celebrate that, because together that's where the success happens, and that's where we can make a difference. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I haven't droned on too long, but like all this stuff, and people never invite me to these things without wanting to see my gold medal. I know that. But the point is that my gold medal is tangible, right? It's a piece of metal on a ribbon. I work very hard for that piece of metal on a ribbon, no doubt. But my point is, every single person on the planet has their own version of a gold medal dream. And I was fortunate enough that parasport evolved when I was young and when I was in the thick of it to make that happen. So now we need to take those lessons and take those experiences and transition them into every area of society so that people can get their gold medal, whatever that looks like. And we need to stop letting the misconceptions that exist influence our ideas and our experiences and even our actions, so that we can break down those myths together, we can re-educate each other, expand each other's comfort zones, so that we can become a fully inclusive island, country, world. I mean, why stop? Solar system? You go wherever. But the point, because that's fair, that's 2022. We have information, we have technology, we have science, we have everything we need now. There's no excuse to treat people differently just because they're not like us, or exclude people because we don't understand them or it makes us feel uncomfortable. Because I promise you, however uncomfortable you feel from not knowing how to help that person feels a lot more uncomfortable by having to sit out, or by not getting involved, or constantly being told no. So like I said, you thought I was going to stop, didn't you? Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully you've all got one thing that you can do to contribute to making a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.